Plants were transported, nurtured, mixed together, and therefore they were noticed with the use of containers. Almost daily I specify pots, and I'm also a little dictator about their placement. And often I think about my favorite place for a whole garden of containers, which is the mansion courtyard at the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, where the entire focal point of that garden is planted pots. It sort of reminds me of the space over there today. In 1994, a very talented group assembled an exhibition called A Place to Take Root. Susan Tomarovich and Guy Wolf, who were two sort of experts in garden pots, made me realize that root systems dictated the pot shapes. And they had names almost like plants. Seed pots, thimbles, long toms, forcing pots. So there's a long history. And it wasn't until the 16th century that we actually put ornamental pots in landscapes in Italian gardens. They were great vases, often planted, and they were carefully placed. They were to punctuate, welcome, direct the eye, mark a descending or ascending staircase. They were clustered together, and now today they're used for security in front of buildings. So we're here, all of us here today, to celebrate a container garden. I just want to ask a few questions. I'm sure you all did notice a few things. In one of the planters, there was a plant coming out of an ear. A pot was stapled together. There was a grass skirt, on one of the beds, which I think was extraordinary. We realized from this show that the perfect container for plants is probably an eggshell. We see the growth of drought-resistant plants. So lots of trends. We love seeing all the critters, from the chipmunks to the squirrels, visiting April Gonzalez's, where she had seeds planted all around and inside her gardens, all intentional. We saw swinging and hanging plant houses with a ladder to bring it back to earth and bring critters up to it. There was a lot of rustic seen throughout, and the entries, many of the entries, were great displays of food production, which is an issue today. Very clever and very diverse. The more I looked, the more I became instinctive as to what I selected. Your pamphlet here gives you the winners today. I'd like to go through them with a few descriptive remarks about them. I selected Kate McCarthy's Organic Landscape and Design piece. It was appropriately called Full Moon Bonfire. What I loved about it was its floating container. And as I moved my fingers around, I was so interested in how it sort of sat there on these four thin legs, I realized it was actually a fireplace itself. I found that it was very bold, very balanced in scale, nicely proportioned from its width to its height, with reds, oranges, rust-colored leaves, appropriately mixed with chartreuse, which seems to be the color palette of the season. It even looks hot in the sun. I just love the way it was separated from the ground, almost being served up to us to be noticed. It felt wonderfully modern. It was a great focal point. For the second choice, the second winner, was Dransfield and Ross with 10 Dance. What I loved about this was the incredible, interesting Nevelson-inspired construction of the three pots. They were differently scaled, but they were unified once again by their plant material. There were 13 different plants, but all from the same bronze coloration. It was very subtle, relaxing, felt very cool, and certainly well crafted, both from the selection of plants and also the construction. It was wildly intentional. Would one of those pots been good enough? I don't think so. The three were what helped me grab my attention. And number three in the winners of the planted area went to Faye Henderson. This container I loved was being held at your nose level by another container. So it was a container within a container. It presented you at your eye level the beautiful blossoms of the jasmine. And in the sun, that would cause a huge bouquet of beautiful smells. The humble rebar holds the branches outward, bringing them more to you. It's a very simple idea, executed perfectly. And I really look forward to seeing how this grows through the summer as the branches get longer and longer. Now, we were going to have 3 runners-up. I picked 4. Intentionally, I'm doing it out of order from what you see them pictured, so you don't think one was above the other. The one I really loved was one called All Bogged Down by Piazza Horticulture. This is a wonderful example of plant material isolated for our appreciation and enjoyment. It was mauve colors and grasses crowded together, but creating multiple views. So this one was really all about showing you the plant material. I thought it was really beautiful. Harvey Bernstein Designs I thought was terrific. It was a skinny, thin container that peeled open at the top. It was like a slash in the landscape. The spiky shadows were created that danced on the ground as well as on the side, depending on the place in the sun. So it was very much alive, even though it was a very limited palette. It had lots of energy through the red paint he used in the container and also the painted leaves he used. The third in that grouping of runner-ups is Patrick Wider. This is a collection of beautifully shaped concrete pots that were assembled with great intentionality. And you can notice all the difference between each pot was actually made differently. Very subtle. It had a very pleasing contrast between the stone gray that he mixed into the concrete and the chartreuse moss that you have to touch. The fourth one in that group was Tracy Jamar. She carefully constructed what I thought was very interesting, a bunch of rusted sheets, creating a planter that had holes, indentations, and even worn lace patterns done by nature eating away at the metal. This assemblage container was sensitively planted with the most innocent white flowers you could find. It's such a humble and authentic entry, I think. It made us all realize that anybody can make a garden out of penniless recycled pieces, and that little gardens can really uplift your spirits. So that completes the winners that I selected, which was incredibly difficult. So we get a round of applause to all those.